The space station floated in the darkness like a small city made of metal and light. Horizon 9 was its name, and thousands of beings from hundreds of different worlds lived and worked there. Ships came and went every hour. Traders sold strange goods. Engineers fixed broken machines. And somewhere in the middle of all this noise and movement, a young human man named Taesung was eating his lunch alone. He was 32 years old. With tired eyes and hands covered in old scars from years of working with machines, he had come to this station 6 months ago as part of the Korean Stellar Corps, a group of human engineers who traveled across the galaxy to help repair ships. It was honest work. It paid well, but it was also lonely. Taesung finished his rice and looked out the window at the endless stars. He missed Earth. He missed the smell of rain and the sound of birds in the morning. Out here, everything smelled like recycled air and engine oil. His communicator beeped. A new ship had arrived at Docking Bay 12, and it needed urgent repairs. He sighed, threw away his empty food container, and walked toward the bay. When he arrived, he saw the ship. It was a small cargo vessel, painted in faded silver and covered in burn marks and dents. Smoke was coming from one of its engines. The landing had been rough. This ship had been through something terrible. The door of the ship opened slowly. A figure stepped out. Taesung stopped walking. She was humanoid, like him, but clearly not human. Her skin was pale silver, almost like moonlight, and strange markings covered her arms and neck. The markings glowed faintly, shifting between colors like living light. Her hair was long and white, tied back in a messy knot. Her clothes were torn and dirty. She was Villani. Taesung had heard stories about the Villani. Everyone in the galaxy had. 400 years ago, the Villani Empire had started a war called the Great Purge. They had destroyed 3 entire species, billions of lives lost, whole planets turned to ash. When the war ended, the Villani were defeated and punished. Their empire was broken. Their people were scattered, and for 4 centuries they had lived as outcasts, hated and feared by everyone. Most Villani now lived in exile zones on the edges of the galaxy. Seeing one on a station like Horizon 9 was rare and dangerous. The woman looked around the docking bay with nervous eyes. When she saw Taesung walking toward her, she took a step back. Her glowing markings turned a dull gray color. Taesung raised his hands to show he meant no harm. He spoke in the common galactic language that everyone used. "I am an engineer," he said. "I am here to help with your ship." The woman stared at him. She did not speak. "My name is Taesung," he continued. "What happened to your ship? It looks like you were attacked." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a quiet voice, she answered, "Pirates. Near the Hollow Nebula? I barely escaped." Taesung nodded. Pirates were common in that area. Many ships never made it through. "Can you fix it?" she asked. Her voice was cold, but underneath the coldness, you could hear something else. Fear. Taesung walked closer to the ship and examined the damage. The engine was badly burned. Several power lines were cut. The hull had holes in it. Fixing this would take days, maybe a full week. "I can fix it, but it will take time." "How much will it cost?" Taesung thought about it. Normal repairs like this would cost thousands of credits. But looking at her torn clothes and damaged ship, he could tell she did not have much money. "Half the normal price," he said. The woman's eyes widened. Her markings flickered with a pale blue light. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do that?" Taesung shrugged. "Because you need help, and I can give it." The woman looked at him like he had just spoken words from an alien language she did not understand. She studied his face, searching for lies or hidden motives. She found none. "You are human," she said slowly. "Do you know what I am?" "Villani." "Then you know what my people did? You know why the galaxy hates us?" Taesung met her eyes. "I know what your ancestors did 400 years ago. I do not know what you did. You are not your ancestors." The woman was silent for a long time. Her markings shifted through several colors, blue, gray, pale green, before settling on a dim white. Taesong did not know what those colors meant, but he could see that his words had affected her somehow. Finally, she nodded once. "My name is Lyra," she said. "I accept your offer." Over the next few hours, Taesoon began working on her ship. He removed the damaged engine parts and started cleaning the burned circuits. Lyra stayed nearby, watching him work but saying nothing. She seemed uncomfortable, like a wild animal that had been forced to accept help from a creature did not trust. Other workers passed through the docking bay. When they saw Lyra, their reactions were immediate. Some stared with open hatred. Others whispered to each other and pointed. A large alien with 4 arms spat on the ground near her feet and walked away. Lyra did not react. She kept her eyes down and her body still. It was clear she was used to this treatment. Taesoon felt anger rise in his chest, but he said nothing. He just kept working. When the station's night cycle began and the lights dimmed, Taesoon stopped his work for the day. His hands were tired and his back hurt. He gathered his tools and turned to Lyra. "I will continue tomorrow," he said. "Do you have a place to sleep?" "I will sleep in my ship," she said. Taesong frowned. The ship had no working heating system. The night cycle made the docking bay very cold. "There are rooms in the station for travelers," he said. "I can help you find one." "No." Her voice was sharp. "I am fine here." Taesoon could see that arguing would be pointless. He nodded and began to walk away. "Human," she called out. He stopped and turned back. Lyra was standing in the doorway of her broken ship. Her markings glowed a soft orange color, and her eyes were filled with something he could not name. Confusion, maybe, or surprise. "You should not be kind to my kind," she said. "Kindness to a Villani will only bring you trouble. Everyone knows this. You will regret helping me." Taesoon looked at her for a moment. Then he gave her a small smile. "Maybe," he said, "but I do not think so. Good night, Lyra." He walked away into the dim corridors of the station. Behind him, Lyra watched him go. She stood there for a long time, alone in the cold docking bay, her markings slowly fading to a deep and lonely blue. She did not understand this human. She did not understand why he had helped her. In her entire life, no one had ever been kind to her without wanting something in return. There was always a price, always a trap, but this man had asked for nothing. He had looked at her without hate. He had spoken to her without disgust. It made no sense. Lyra went inside her broken ship and sat down in the pilot's chair. She wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the dark ceiling. Tomorrow, she told herself, she would find out what he really wanted. Everyone wanted something. Even humans. Especially humans. She closed her eyes, but sleep did not come easily, and when it finally did, her dreams were full of fire and screaming, and the faces of people she had failed to save. 3 days passed on Horizon 9. Taesoon worked on Lyra's ship every morning and every afternoon. The damage was worse than he had first thought. The pirates had nearly destroyed the engine completely. But slowly, piece by piece, he was bringing the ship back to life. Lyra stayed close to her ship at all times. She never wandered the station. She never visited the markets or the food halls. When Taesong asked her why, she simply said it was safer that way. On the 4th day, Taesong brought someone with him to the docking bay. Her name was Hannah. She was 28 years old, with short black hair and a bright smile that could light up any room. She was also an engineer. She had been Taesung's friend since they were both young students on Earth, when the Korean Stellar Corps sent him to Horizon 9. She had volunteered to come with him. Hannah was curious about everything. When she saw Lyra standing beside the damaged ship, her eyes went wide with excitement. "Is she Villani?" Hannah whispered to Taesong. "I have never met a Villani before. I have only seen pictures in old history books." "Be respectful," Taesoon said quietly. "She has been through a lot." Hannah nodded seriously. Then she walked up to Lyra and bowed her head in greeting. "Hello? My name is Hannah. I am here to help Taesing with the repairs." "It is very nice to meet you." Lyra looked at her with suspicion. She did not return the greeting. Her markings flickered gray. "Why are you being friendly to me?" Lyra asked. "Do you not know what I am?" Hannah tilted her head. "You are Lyra, that is what Tayson told me. Is there something else I should know?" "I am Villani." "Yes, I can see that. Your markings are very beautiful. Do they always change colors like that?" Lyra stared at her. No one had ever called her markings beautiful. Most people saw them as the mark of a monster. "You are strange," Lyra said finally. Hannah laughed. "I have heard that before. Come on, let us get to work." The three of them worked together that day. Hannah talked constantly, filling the silence with stories about Earth, about her family, about the funny things that happened on the station. Tayson smiled at his friend's endless energy. Even Lyra seemed less tense, though she still did not smile. During a break, Hannah suggested they all eat together in the station's common area. There was a food hall there with meals from many different worlds. Lyra shook her head immediately. "I cannot go there." "Why not?" Hannah asked. "Because of what happens when I do?" Tayson and Hannah exchanged looks. Then Tayson spoke gently. "We will be with you. No one will bother you." Lyra laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "You do not understand. You have not seen how they look at me, how they treat me, and show us," Hannah said. Her voice was soft but firm. "Let us see." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, she stood up. Her markings were a nervous pale green. "But do not say I did not warn you." The three of them walked through the corridors of the station toward the common area. Lyra kept her head down and stayed close to the humans. Her body was tight with tension. The common area was crowded. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species sat at long tables, eating and talking. The noise was loud and constant. The moment Lyra walked in, the noise began to fade. People noticed her. Heads turned. Conversation stopped. A wave of silence spread through the room like a disease. Tayson could feel the hatred in the air. It was thick and heavy, like walking through mud. Someone at a nearby table stood up and moved away. Others did the same. Within seconds, a wide, empty space had formed around Lyra. Then the whispers started. "Villani filth. Why is that thing here? It should go back to the exile zones where it belongs. Disgusting." Merchant with blue scales walked past Lyra and spat on the floor near her feet. He did not even look at her. To him, she was not worth the effort of eye contact. Lyra stood completely still. Her markings had turned a sickly gray-white. Her face showed no emotion at all. She had learned long ago how to hide her pain. Tayson felt his hands curl into fists. Beside him, Hannah's bright smile had disappeared. Her eyes were filled with anger and sadness. "Let us go," Lyra said quietly. "I told you this would happen." They left the common area. No one tried to stop them. No one said goodbye. Back in the docking bay, Lyra sat down on a metal crate and stared at the floor. Her markings slowly faded back to gray. "Now you understand," she said. "This is my life. Everywhere I go, it is the same. I am not a person to them. I am a reminder of what my ancestors did. I carry their sins on my skin." Hannah sat down beside her. "That is not fair. You did not start that war. You are not even born yet. Fair does not matter. History matters. Blood matters. I am Villani. That is enough." Dasong leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. "Tell us about yourself, Lyra. Not about your ancestors. About you." Lyra looked up at him. "Why do you want to know?" "Because you are more than your species. You have a story. Everyone does." For a long time, Lyra was silent. Then, slowly, she began to talk. She told them about the refugee colony where she was born. It was a cold, harsh world on the edge of known space. The Villani who lived there were poor and desperate. They had no rights, no protection, no future. She told them about her markings. Among the Villani, certain patterns were considered pure and beautiful. Her patterns were different. They were irregular, uneven. The other Villani called her cursed. Even among outcasts, she was an outcast. She told them about her life since then. She had left the colony when she was 16. She had survived by doing work that no one else would do. Smuggling goods across dangerous borders, cleaning up after battles on dead worlds, taking jobs from criminals because they were the only ones who would hire her. "I have done terrible things," she said. Her voice was flat, like she was reading from a list. "I have worked for terrible people. I have seen terrible death. My hands are not clean." Hannah reached out and gently touched Lyra's arm. "You did what you had to do to survive. That does not make you evil." Lyra pulled her arm away. "You are wrong. I am exactly what they say I am. Filthy, broken, a curse on two legs." She stood up suddenly and walked toward her ship. "I am tired. I need to rest. Thank you for your help today." She went inside and closed the door. Hannah and Taesung stood alone in the docking bay. "She has so much pain inside her," Hannah said softly. "So much shame." "Yes," Taesung agreed. "She has been told she is worthless her entire life. She believes it now. We have to help her. We are trying, but some wounds take a long time to heal." That night, Taesung could not sleep. He kept thinking about Lyra's gray markings and her empty voice. He kept thinking about the hatred in the common area and the way she had stood there like a statue, accepting it all without a word. He got out of bed and walked to the docking bay. The lights were dim. The bay was quiet. He walked slowly toward Lyra's ship. Through the small window, he could see her sitting inside. She was alone in the dark. Her shoulders were shaking. She was crying. Her markings glowed a deep, sorrowful blue, and silent tears ran down her silver cheeks. She cried like someone who had been crying alone for years. She cried like someone who had forgotten what comfort felt like. Taesung watched her for a moment. His heart hurt. Then he turned and walked away. She needed privacy. She needed space. But tomorrow he promised himself he would find a way to help her. He would find a way to show her that she was worth more than the galaxy believed. He just had to figure out how the next night. Taesung did something unusual. Instead of going to sleep after his work was done, he went to the small kitchen in the human quarters and began to cook. He made a simple dish from his homeland: rice, vegetables, and a special sauce that his mother had taught him when he was a child. The smell filled the small room and brought back memories of home, of family dinners, of warm summer nights on Earth. When the food was ready, he put it in a container and walked to the docking bay. Lyra was sitting outside her ship, staring at nothing. Her markings were dim and gray. She looked up when she heard his footsteps. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "It is late." Taesung sat down on a crate across from her. He opened the container, and the warm smell of the food drifted through the cold air. "I brought you something to eat," he said. "Real food, not the station rations." Lyra looked at the food, then at him. "Why?" "Because you have not eaten properly in days. I have noticed that is not your problem." "Maybe not, but I made too much anyway. It would be a waste to throw it away." He held out the container. Lyra stared at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, she took it. They sat in silence while she ate. Taesung did not push her to talk. He just sat there, keeping her company, letting her take her time. When she finished, Lyra set the empty container down. Her markings had shifted to a slightly warmer color, though still dim. "That was good," she said quietly. "Thank you. You are welcome." More silence. The station hummed softly around them. Somewhere far away, a ship's engine started. Then Lyra spoke. "Why are you doing this? Why are you and Hannah being so kind to me?" "What do you want?" Taesung looked at her calmly. "Nothing. We want nothing from you. That is impossible. Everyone wants something. That is how the universe works. That is how your universe works. But it is not how mine works." Lyra shook her head. Her markings flickered with frustration. "You do not understand. I am not someone worth helping. I am not someone worth knowing. If you knew the things I have done, you would walk away like everyone else. And tell me," Taesung said. "Tell me the things you have done. Let me decide for myself." Lyra looked at him with something like fear in her eyes. "You do not want to hear this." "I do. I want to understand you, Lyra. the real you. Not the monster the galaxy thinks you are. For a long time, she was silent. Her markings shifted through several colors, as if her emotions were fighting inside her. Finally, she let out a long breath. "Fine," she said. "You want to know? I will tell you." She stared at the floor as she spoke. Her voice was low and flat. 5 years ago, I was working for a crime lord named Vorn. He controlled most of the illegal trade in 3 systems: smuggling, weapons, drugs, slaves. Everything dark and evil, he had his hands in it. She paused. Her markings turned a sickly pale green. I was just a pilot. That is what I told myself. I did not ask questions. I did not look too closely at the cargo. I just flew the ship and collected my payment. It was the only way I could survive. Another pause. Her hands were shaking slightly. One day, Vorn gave me a job. I was supposed to transport a group of prisoners from one planet to another. He said they were criminals who needed to be moved to a new prison. I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted to believe him. She closed her eyes. There were 23 people in that cargo hold. Men, women, some of them were crying. Some of them were begging me to let them go. I did not listen. I told myself they were criminals. I told myself it was not my business. Song felt his heart grow heavy. He could see where this story was going. I flew for 6 hours, Lyra continued. When I landed at the destination, Vorn's men came and took the prisoners away. I never saw them again. I never asked what happened to them. She opened her eyes. They were wet with tears. 2 weeks later, I learned the truth. Those people were not criminals. They were political enemies of Vorn, activists, journalists, people who had spoken against him. He had them all killed, every single one, and I was the one who delivered them to their death. Her voice cracked. A tear ran down her silver cheek. I did not pull the trigger. I did not give the orders. But I flew the ship. I carried them to their graves. 23 people are dead because of me. Taesong sat in silence. He did not know what to say. The weight of her confession hung in the air like smoke. Lyra wiped her face with the back of her hand. Her markings had turned the deepest gray he had ever seen. That is why I am running now, she said. A few months ago, Vorn gave me another job. He wanted me to transport a group of children. He said they were orphans being moved to a new home. But I knew what he really planned to do with them. She looked at Taesong directly for the first time. I refused. For the first time in my life, I said no. I could not do it again. I could not carry more innocent people to their death. So I ran. I stole my own ship and I ran. Now Vorn has a bounty on my head. His hunters have been chasing me ever since. That is why my ship was damaged. That is why I came here. She laughed bitterly. It was a broken sound. You want to know why I refused? You want to know why I finally grew a conscience after all these years? She leaned forward, her eyes burning with self-hatred, because even something as filthy as me has a line. Even a monster has limits. That is all I am, Tae-soon. A monster who found a line she could not cross. That does not make me good. It just makes me slightly less evil. Taesong looked at her for a long moment. Then he asked a simple question. What do you see when you look at yourself? Lyra blinked. The question seemed to confuse her. What? When you look in a mirror? When you think about who you are, what do you see? Her face twisted with pain. Her markings flickered wildly, cycling through gray and green and a terrible dark purple. I see exactly what the galaxy sees, she whispered. I see a curse. I see a failure. I see someone who does not deserve to live. She looked down at her hands. I see someone who is filthy inside and out. The words hung in the air. They were heavy and sharp, like knives made of sadness. Taesong did not look away. He did not flinch. He sat there, quiet and calm, watching her fall apart in front of him. Then he spoke. I see something different. Lyra looked up. Her eyes were filled with tears and confusion. What? Taesong leaned forward. His voice was soft but steady. I see someone who survived. I see someone who made terrible choices because she had no other options. I see someone who carried guilt for years, alone, with no one to share the burden. He paused. And I see someone who, when the moment came, chose to be better. You could have taken those children to Vorn. You could have saved yourself. But you did not. You refused. You risked everything to protect innocent lives. Lyra shook her head. That does not erase what I did before. No, Taesoon agreed. It does not. Nothing can bring back those 23 people. That guilt will always be with you. But guilt is not the same as identity. What you did is not the same as who you are. He reached out and gently touched her hand. Her skin was cool and smooth, like marble. You are not filthy, Lyra. You are wounded. You are scarred. But you are not beyond hope. No one is. Lyra stared at him. Her markings, slowly, hesitantly, began to shift. The dark gray faded. A faint golden color appeared at the edges. How can you say that? She whispered. How can you look at me and see anything but a monster? Taesoon smiled sadly. Because I know that monsters do not cry. Monsters do not feel guilt. Monsters do not refuse to hurt children, even when it costs them everything. He squeezed her hand gently. You are not a monster, Lyra. You are a person who has made mistakes. And the fact that you hate yourself for those mistakes proves that you have a heart worth saving. For a long moment, Lyra said nothing. She just sat there, holding his hand. Her markings slowly brightening to a soft, uncertain gold. Then, for the first time since he had met her, she smiled. It was a small smile, fragile, broken at the edges. But it was real. You were a strange human. Taesoon, she said. I've heard that before, he replied. And there in the cold docking bay, surrounded by darkness and machinery and the endless silence of space, something small and precious began to grow between them. It was called hope. The days that followed were different. Something had changed between Taesong and Lyra after that night in the docking bay. She still did not smile often. She still kept her walls up. But there were moments now, small moments. When the walls came down just a little, she started eating meals with Taesoon and Hannah instead of hiding in her ship. She listened to Hannah's stories about Earth without looking away. Sometimes she even asked questions. Tell me about your home, she said one afternoon while they were working on her ship's navigation system. Tell me about Earth. Hannah's eyes lit up. She loved talking about home. Oh, Earth is beautiful, Hannah said. It has blue oceans and green forests and mountains that touch the sky. We have animals there that you would not believe. Tiny creatures that sing in the morning. Giant fish that swim through the deep water. Birds with feathers of every color. Sounds like a paradise, Lyra said quietly. Hannah's smile faded a little. It is beautiful, yes. But it was not always peaceful. Humans have a very dark history. Lyra tilted her head. Her markings flickered with curiosity. What do you mean? Taesoon set down his tools and leaned against the ship's hull. He looked at Lyra seriously. Before humans traveled to the stars, he said, we almost destroyed ourselves. Many times, how? War. We fought wars over everything. Land, resources, religion, the color of our skin. The language we spoke. For thousands of years, humans killed other humans for reasons that seem foolish now. Lyra's eyes widened. You fought wars because of skin color? Yes. And religion. And nationality. And 100 other things. There was a time when humans from one part of Earth thought they were better than humans from another part. They enslaved each other. They tortured each other. They built machines specifically designed to kill as many people as possible. Hannah nodded sadly. There was a war about 200 years before we reached the stars. It was called the Third World War. Millions of people died. Entire cities were turned to ash. For a while, it seemed like humanity would not survive. Lyra was silent. Her markings had turned a troubled blue. Sounds like the Great Purge, she said finally. That sounds like what my ancestors did. Yes, Taesoon agreed. It was very similar. The difference is that humans had no one to punish us afterward. We had to punish ourselves. We had to look at the destruction we had caused and decide if we wanted to continue on that path or change. And you changed? Eventually, it took a long time. Many more people died before we learned our lesson. But slowly, generation by generation, we began to understand something important. What? Taesoon looked directly into her eyes. Guilt is not inherited. The sins of the father do not pass to the child. Every person is born new, with a chance to be better than those who came before. Lyra shook her head. The galaxy does not believe that. They hold all Villani responsible for what happened 400 years ago. I know, and they are wrong. You did not start the Great Purge. You were not even born. Punishing you for something your ancestors did is the same kind of thinking that caused the war in the first place. Hannah moved closer to Lyra. Humans learned that lesson the hard way. We know what it means to carry the guilt of our history. But we also know that the past does not have to define the future. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Her markings shifted through several colors before settling on a soft, uncertain gold. But what about the things I have done personally? She asked. The prisoners I transported, the crimes I committed. How do I move past that? Taesoon answered carefully. You do not move past it. That guilt will always be with you. Those people's deaths will always be on your conscience. That is the price of being someone who cares. Lyra flinched. Then what is the point? If the guilt never goes away, why bother trying to be better? Because redemption is not about erasing the past. It is about building a better future. Every day you have a choice. Every moment you can decide who you want to be. The person you were yesterday does not have to be the person you are today. He paused and leaned forward. When you refused to transport those children, you made a choice. You decided that you would rather die than hurt innocent people again. That was not a small thing, Lyra. That was the beginning of something new. Lyra's eyes glistened with tears. One good choice does not make me a good person. No, but it is a start. And if you keep making good choices, day after day, year after year, eventually you will look back and realize that you have become someone different, someone you can be proud of. Hannah reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a tiny pot with a plant growing inside it. The plant had delicate green leaves and a single white flower. This is for you, Hannah said, holding it out to Lyra. It is from Earth. We call it Hope Flower. It grows in the darkest places. Even where there is no light, it finds a way to survive. Lyra took the pot with trembling hands. She stared at the small flower like it was the most precious thing she had ever seen. Why are you giving this to me? Because you remind me of it, Hannah said with a gentle smile. You have been in darkness for so long, but you are still alive. You are still growing. And I believe that one day you will bloom. For a moment, Lyra could not speak. Her markings shifted to the brightest gold Taesoon had ever seen. It was beautiful, like sunlight made solid. Then she did something unexpected. She hugged Hannah. It was awkward and brief, like she had forgotten how to do it, but it was real. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you both, Taesoon smiled. For the first time since meeting Lyra, he felt genuine hope that she might actually heal, that she might actually believe she was worth something. But hope, as he would soon learn, was a fragile thing. That evening, the station's alarm began to wail. Taesoon ran to the nearest information screen and read the alert. 3 ships had just entered Horizon 9's space. They were not responding to communication. They were heading directly for the station. The ships were registered to the Vorn Syndicate. Taesoon's blood went cold. He ran to the docking bay as fast as he could. When he arrived, he found Lyra standing in front of her ship, staring at the ceiling speakers that announced the incoming vessels. Her markings had turned pure white with terror. They found me, she said. Her voice was empty. I knew they would find me eventually. It was only a matter of time. Hannah arrived moments later, breathing hard. I saw the alert. Are those the people who are hunting you? Yes, Vorn's bounty hunters. They've been tracking me for months. Lyra turned and looked at the 2 humans who had shown her more kindness than anyone in her entire life. Her expression was filled with sorrow and resignation. You need to stay away from me, she said. When they come for me, they will kill anyone who stands in their way. I will not let you die because of me. We are not leaving you, Taesong said firmly. You have to. I am not worth dying for. That is not your decision to make. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Why? Why do you keep doing this? Why do you care so much about someone like me? Taesung stepped forward and placed his hands on her shoulders. He looked directly into her eyes with absolute certainty. Because you are worth saving. Because everyone deserves a chance to be better. And because I refuse to live in a universe where good people abandon each other when things get hard, they let go and turn toward the door. Now stay here. I need to make some calls. He walked out of the docking bay already planning. He did not know how he was going to save Lyra from 3 ships full of killers. He did not know if it was even possible, but he was going to. Try, because that was what humans did. They fought for each other, even when there was no hope left, even when the universe said it was pointless. They fought anyway. The bounty hunters docked at Horizon 9 1 hour later. There were 3 ships, each carrying 6 armed mercenaries. 18 killers in total, all of them experienced. All of them hungry for the reward on Lyra's head. Their leader was a tall creature with dark red skin and 4 eyes. His name was Korath, and he had been hunting people for 30 years. He had never failed to catch a target. Korath walked through the station's corridors with his men behind him. Other beings moved out of their way, pressing against the walls, avoiding eye contact. Everyone knew what bounty hunters looked like. Everyone knew to stay out of their path. Korath approached the station's administration center. The alien who managed Horizon 9, a nervous creature with too many arms and too few spines, was waiting for him. We are looking for a Vellani female, Korath said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. She arrived here 4 days ago in a damaged cargo ship. You will tell us where she is. The administrator wrung several of his hands together. Yes, of course. She is in docking bay 12, but I should warn you, she has made some friends here. Human friends. Korath's 4 eyes blinked slowly. Humans. Yes. Engineers from the Korean Stellar Corps. They have been helping her repair her ship. Korath made a sound that might have been a laugh. Humans, they always stick their noses where they do not belong. It does not matter. We will take the Vellani and leave. If the humans get in our way, they will die. He turned and led his men toward docking bay 12. Inside the bay, Taesong was working fast. He had spent the last hour contacting every human on the station. Engineers, traders, medical workers, ship captains. He had told them what was happening. He had asked for their help. Not everyone agreed. Some thought it was too dangerous. Some thought Lyra was not worth the risk. But others listened. Others understood. Now there were 12 humans standing in docking bay 12, forming a line between Lyra's ship and the main entrance. Taesoon stood at the center. Hannah stood beside him. Behind them, a retired military pilot named Daeho checked the controls of an old human freighter. Lyra watched them from near her ship. Her markings were cycling rapidly between white and gray. She could not believe what she was seeing. You are all going to die, she said. There are 18 of them. They have weapons. They have training. You are just engineers and traders. Taesong looked back at her. Maybe, but we are not leaving. Why? I am nobody to you. I am just a stranger you met a few days ago. That is not true, Hannah said. You are our friend. Lyra's markings flickered to gold. A tear ran down her cheek. You are insane, she whispered. All of you. You are completely insane, probably, Daeho said with a grin. He was 53 years old, with gray hair and a scar across his jaw. He had flown combat missions in the border wars 20 years ago. But insane is the human specialty. The door to the docking bay opened. Korath walked in, followed by his 18 mercenaries. They spread out across the entrance, weapons drawn, eyes scanning the room. When Korath saw the line of humans blocking his path, he stopped. His 4 eyes narrowed. What is this? He demanded. Move aside. This does not concern you. Taesong stepped forward. His heart was pounding, but his voice was steady. "The woman you are looking for is under our protection. She is not going with you." Korath stared at him. "Do you know who I am? Do you know who I work for? Vorn will not tolerate interference. I do not care who you work for. She is staying here. You are willing to die for a Villani, a member of the race that destroyed 3 species? You would throw away your life for filth like her." Taesoon did not flinch. "She is not filth. She is a person. And yes, I am willing to die to protect her." The other humans stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder. None of them had weapons. None of them had armor. But they had something else. They had each other. Korath's expression was impossible to read. He looked at the humans for a long moment. Then he raised his weapon. "So be it. Kill them all." The mercenaries moved forward, and then everything happened at once. Daeho hit a button on his control panel. The old freighter's engines roared to life, and the ship lurched forward, blocking the path of several mercenaries. Hannah had spent the last hour hacking into the docking bay's systems. Now she activated her code. The docking clamps on one of the bounty hunter ships locked tight, trapping it in place. The lights in the bay flickered and went out, plunging everything into darkness. Emergency lights came on a second later. Casting everything in a dim red glow, the humans scattered, using the confusion to their advantage. They knocked over crates and created barriers. They pulled emergency releases that filled the air with smoke. They fought not with weapons, but with knowledge. They knew this station. They knew its systems. They knew its secrets. In the chaos, Taesoon grabbed Lyra's arm. "Your ship is ready," he shouted over the noise. "Go now. I cannot leave you. You have to." This was the plan. "We buy you time to escape." A mercenary spotted them and raised his weapon. Taesung pushed Lyra behind him and charged at the attacker. He tackled the mercenary to the ground, fighting for control of the weapon. The gun went off, and Taesung felt a burning pain in his side. He had been shot, but he did not let go. He wrestled the weapon away and threw it across the room. Hannah appeared beside him and helped him up. Blood was soaking through his shirt. "You are hurt," she cried. "I am fine. Get Lyra to her ship." More humans joined the fight. They were not winning, not exactly, but they were holding on. Every second they bought was another second for Lyra to escape. Daeho's freighter was now blocking 2 of the bounty hunter's ships from launching. He was taking fire from multiple angles, but his shields were holding. "Come on, little lady," he muttered into his communicator. "Get out of here. We cannot hold them forever." Lyra stood at the door of her ship, looking back at the chaos. Her markings were cycling through every color imaginable: fear and hope and gratitude and pain. Taesung was stumbling toward her, one hand pressed against his bleeding side. "Go," he said. "Please, let us do this for you." "Why?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "Why would you bleed for someone like me?" Taesung smiled through the pain. "Because you are not filthy. You are someone who chose to be better, and that is the most human thing there is." Lyra looked at him for one long moment. Her markings settled into a brilliant, pure white. It was a color Villani only showed in moments of profound connection, of deep and absolute love. "I will not forget this," she said. "I will not forget any of you." She turned and ran into her ship. The engines fired. The ship lifted off the ground, turned toward the open space door, and launched into the darkness. She was free. Behind her, Korath screamed in rage. He aimed his weapon at the fleeing ship, but it was too late. She was already gone, disappearing into the endless stars. The bounty hunters retreated. They had lost their target, and the humans had made this fight far more costly than expected. Korath glared at Taesoon as he backed toward the exit. "This is not over," he growled. "Vorn will hear about this. You have made powerful enemies today." Taesoon leaned against a crate, bleeding and exhausted, but he was smiling. "Good," he said. "I was getting bored anyway." Korath left. His men followed. The docking bay fell silent. Hannah helped Taesung sit down. The medical team was already on the way. His wound was serious, but not fatal. He would live.